Are you interested in finding the right target audience who are willing to pay you for your coaching? If so, this business deep dive is for you. I'm going to be walking through the business of one of our community members who's reached out for help because he's having a tough time deciding between a couple different avatars and not really sure what niche is best for him. And as a result, his business is not where he wants it to be. So if that can relate to what you're going through, you're going to want to watch this. I think it'll give you a lot of clarity. Justin, what is up? Welcome to the show. We're glad to speak with you and hopefully help you out over the next 25, 30 minutes. Give our viewers and listeners a bit of context. Real quick, what do you do? Who do you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, I'm a certified hypnotherapist and stress and anxiety management coach. I primarily work with people who are suffering from some type of stress or anxiety, and that kind of spans a wide variety of people, but it kind of breaks into three different categories. So it's usually college students, it's people that are working on relationship issues or they're going through a divorce, and or it's people that are making a career change. I've been doing this for about 20 years. It started off as a brick and mortar business, and I ran that brick and mortar business for about 12 years. And then it kind of dwindled off for a while, but then right at the very beginning of the pandemic, I switched into doing this completely online. So it's now been 4 years that my entire practice is now shifted online, and that's where I'm at with everything.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. So I'm just going to draw some stuff out on the iPad. I kind of like to think and draw as I go. Can you see this on your screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So we've got college students. We've got divorce potential.
Yeah.
Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
And then the third one was career transition.
That's right.
Okay, cool. So how can I best support you today?
Well, what's been going on with me is that I'm jam-packed with clients. I have created a very functional system to be able to advertise and get lots of clients. So I have as many clients as I need. However, I'm at a stage in my process where I would like to create something, and I've always wanted to, where I could sell to a high ticket audience. I've tried doing this in a variety of different ways, and I've never been able to achieve success. Essentially, the reason I have been able to achieve success is because no matter how I kind of work out the advertising structure, I always find sort of it's really challenging to find good enough quality leads that I can actually sell to. That's what it seems like, at least. And I've built out two different funnel systems in a big way. So I've made two pretty large investments. One with, well, not to say the names of these companies, but essentially with two very specific companies that just specialize in doing this. Both of these funnels were robust. They were very technologically superior, and they still kind of ran into the same issue that I have been running into myself, which is that they couldn't really nail down who to market this to in order to make it work properly based on what I actually provide. And so I kind of now find myself like, okay, cool. I can serve my customers. I have them, but I can't create that larger ticket sale. So today I would love to be able to get your insight into, maybe what you believe would be the high ticket offer, or what, might actually be something that we could offer within my scope. And even that alone would probably be the starting point, right? That's kind of, to me, what I think has been going wrong is that I don't have the correct starting point. So I have all the thing kind of coming after that, but because I don't have a good starting point, I hit a low target. I don't hit a high enough target along the way.
Yeah. So what I just drew here is everything flows from the target market. You could have the most technically robust funnel. You could have billboard ads. You could have a plane flying over top of the Super Bowl. But if that target market isn't defined, all of your messaging is going to be pretty vague, right? And generally when I hear this, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're constantly up against the same issues, it's usually one of two things. It's either an offer thing or a messaging thing, or it could be both, but those are both a byproduct of who you're speaking to. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So out of curiosity, so when you set up these funnels, what was the message? Of these three avatars, who are you speaking to?
Well, and so that's the thing, right? Is because when I would meet with them, and even in myself, I struggle to nail that down. And I'm going to just give you the example here of college students, right? Because what I can say that I did is I at least did pare this down into not these three categories. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I should get targeted. So we said, let's target college students, right? And so then we started the process of trying to figure out how can you target college students? And then the obstacle that we came up against is that you're not actually targeting college students, you're targeting college students' parents. And that started to become a nightmare, essentially. And so we built out this huge funnel. We're now trying to hit college students' parents. I've got two experts that like essentially know how to do this and are basically scratching their head going like, we're really going to struggle to dig up these magical needle in a haystack parents that have somebody currently in college that want to not only, buy your service, but it's somebody that has enough of a stressor or a need to actually make that sale. So again, that's how that particular funnel crashed and burned, right? It was literally like a college support system. It was very well put together, and yet we couldn't find that magic client. So
yeah. So a couple things. I put a red X over college students because I would never recommend targeting college students. Here's the reality. So when we're looking to like criteria to buy, right? Number one is they have to have a burning desire / problem they want solved. Second is they want it solved now, not like sometime in the future. Third, in the context of a let's say a discovery call, you have to be speaking with the decision maker or occurs. The challenge with what you just described is that you're having to talk to the parents and the college student themselves to get on the same page. That's always more challenging. And then fourth is very important, is they need to have their wherewithal to pay. So if we look at college students, 1 and 2 might be there. 3, they might be there. 4 becomes an issue because now you have to do, or they really have to sell their parents on why they have to do this thing, right? Generally, and this is also why I'm not a huge fan of, clients who are like, I really want to help these corporations and get into the hospital setting. I'm like, don't do that, because all of that is increasing the number of decision makers that are involved in this process, and the sales cycle becomes years or months instead of going right to the direct end user. So anything we can do to speak to one person, because even then it might be a spouse who might be involved, but at least when you're talking to, let's say 30 plus year olds, they usually have more disposable income than if they were in college. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And again, we were for sure starting to target only parents, but that is absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a pair of clients, brother and sister. They target sports nutritionists, and they work with college athletes on the nutrition side for hockey. Actually, sorry, they're not college athletes. They want to get into college. So they're talking with like teenagers to improve their performance with nutrition. And they've done well. They built a 6-figure business, but I've seen the journey over the past 3 years, right? And the biggest bottleneck to their growth is this fact that they have to sell someone who's a teenager, in a lot of cases, who thinks they're invincible, and then also trying to sell the parents or getting both the decision makers on the same page. It's just more friction than is necessary.
That is, in a nutshell, that is 100% what the problem is it's the fact that if you get a college student that has the pain, then it's hard for them to communicate what's going on with that to the parent in terms of dollars and cents. If you have a parent who essentially thinks that their kid absolutely needs this, the college student wants nothing to do with the coaching. So either way, you're kind of like, okay, this isn't going to work.
Yeah. So if we take that criteria toward the career transition for a second, all 4 of those might be real, right? They may desire to change. They want it solved now. They're the decision maker. They might have the wherewithal to pay. What I have noticed in this specific vertical is the offer. This is where this becomes really tricky, because what I've seen work well versus what hasn't worked as well is for career transition. And I'm not saying it can't work, but I'm saying when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at what has the least amount of resistance, right? The most acceptance of what it is we're putting out there. If someone's looking to make a career transition, in my experience, it usually comes down to a B2B monetary / ROI proposition, as opposed to let me help you kind of navigate life and figure things out. And that's all nice. But the reality is, if someone wants to leave a job or leave a career or start a new business or whatever it is, the most compelling offer that's going to move them across the finish line is, as an example, I'll help you leave your job, start a new business, and make 10 grand per month using this specific system. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
That's a much more compelling offer to this kind of career transition audience. Although what you do, I'm not devaluing what you do. It's immensely valuable. But in the mind of the market, the thing is, most humans go where there are hard, tangible results. So as an example, will this help me have more sex? Will this help me look better, i.e. lose weight? Will this help me make more money? Those are kind of like the 3 concrete prime drivers. Okay. So the career transition, if we can position that in such a way where it's more of a monetary ROI that is traditionally going to do better than let me kind of help you mitigate the stress of the transition and kind of get on your feet and to the next thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a just to throw something else in here, and I don't know if what it'll do to this, but I have been thinking of something as an alternative to these because clearly these are my clients. These are the people that I currently serve, and I serve lots of them. But most of it actually is either through word of mouth or through a special referral channel that I've essentially created over time, right? And I have essentially 3 or 4 doctors that refer patients and clients to me on a regular and consistent basis. So I'm filled at that level, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking though that because my particular style of coaching and definitely hypnotherapy are so unique that I might package together, talking about a system that I could then remarket to doctors and other clinical therapists that would do one of the things that you're talking about, which is essentially fill a niche in their own practice. Because clearly they're sending these people to me for a reason. They're sending it to me because I work in this alternative channel. And they're all very curious about my alternative channel. In fact, lots of them want to take me out to lunch or have a long conversation and try to figure that out. And so I started to think to myself, like, okay, this might be a place, right, to create a system that I could sell at a higher ticket, rate that would essentially help them to get their mind wrapped around how these alternative therapies work. Does that sound like it's starting to go more in the direction of what you're talking about?
Thank you for bringing that up because I think you can do that. The challenge when you do something like this is you're giving somebody a modality to help their clients achieve better results, which is amazing. But unless you can show them with undeniable proof that it's going to make them more money, primarily, it's again going to be a little bit tougher to sell. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it ends up being like a certification type of approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
A training exactly. An educational approach as opposed to a solution. Yeah.
My only concern with that is that becomes a nice to have, not a must have.
Okay.
Right. So I think you actually have acres of diamonds sitting underneath your nose. And if I'm being honest with you, I think this is the big opportunity right here. Because people who are about on the brink, on the road to getting divorced, assuming they want to stay together, that's a massive, massive pain point. Because now it's no longer just about them, it's about their spouse, it's about potentially the impact on the family. I mean, listen, I went through, my parents were divorced, I have friends who've been divorced, I've seen, obviously as you have as well.
Yeah.
It's a really, really big issue for people that don't want to go through that. And if you got people that are on the same page who'd rather save their marriage, or however you approach that, this is a burning problem. Like this is a very, very big problem, a burning desire that someone is not going to be like, well, let me think about it for a while. I mean, they might be done tomorrow, right? So in terms of the burning desireness of this type of problem, this becomes very compelling compared to the other ones you've mentioned here. Okay. So with that said, this is obviously an audience you can help. You enjoy serving, I'm assuming, to some degree, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I have again, within any of the things that we have out here, I have a crazy track record with them. Lots and lots of people I've worked with over a long period of time. So for sure, I feel comfortable in that market. Again, it's just for right now, it's about being able to serve them as a client, meaning like they're coming in and they're purchasing, a session at a time. Most of them, especially in a divorce, they buy a bunch of sessions sort of up front, and then that peters off over time, right? They have like a ton of pain or a ton of suffering that they're going through, and they need to get through that over the course of about 6 months, and then sort of that turns into lesser, and I kind of put people into a sort of a wellness rotation. So that's kind of how I'm currently dealing with it.
Cool. So for the divorce stuff, are they coming to you, i.e. like, I want to save my marriage, or I just got divorced and like, how do I put my life back together now?
It's mostly, I got divorced and I want to put my life back together. It's usually, so there's 2 little parts. One isn't necessarily even divorce. It's relationship trouble. Like they're like, I am struggling like crazy in my relationship and I need help to understand, like, can I keep it together? And so I help a bunch of those kinds of people. And then I have a bunch of people that have already gotten divorced and now they're trying to pick their life back up and put it back together.
Cool. So can I give you an idea that just came to mind?
Mm-hmm.
The relationship rescue method as an example, right? So whatever, like let's say whether it's a married couple who is looking to ideally not get divorced, or they're, just a relationship they want to fix. That becomes an interesting, what we call proprietary process, like a way, like your secret sauce for how you do what you do. But the name in and of itself becomes very interesting because it implies what it is that they want. They want the relationship to be rescued, assuming it's before the inevitable or, the bad event. So the one thing I would clarify, if this were the audience you wanted to serve, would be, do we do post-breakup or pre-breakup, trying to prevent the breakup, right? Because either one can work, but the messaging is obviously very different between the two.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So of those two, like, which one do you think you would lean more towards?
It all really depends. It's that's a 50-50 split, to be honest with you. I don't think I could necessarily say one way or the other. And the reason why I would say this, just to kind of put it out there, is that if you jump in at the beginning, you're running the risk that the person's going to purchase, let's say, your product, your rescue remedy, and essentially now it works, but maybe it's a relationship, so things still don't go well, right? So now you have not necessarily a positive outcome to their situation. On the other end of it, you do always have a positive outcome because now you're starting from scratch, but now you might not have, maybe not as much motivation in that moment, right? You're gonna have a lot more pain if they're trying to save the relationship right now. After the fact, they might have a lot of pain because they're trying to deal with the resolution, but it's not necessarily the same. So it's a toss up.
So when in doubt, I would go where the pain is highest.
Yeah.
Because what that forces you to do is it forces you to ask yourself, what do I have to be better at to help them achieve the outcome so that it actually works, right? Or setting the expectations up front where they're very aware of the fact that, listen, it may not work. Like, you guys might realize in this process that, you know what, maybe we're not meant to be together, but that could also be a win, right?
Right. And that's essentially what you end up having to do, is set those expectations to let them know, that we might come to realize that you guys aren't really meant to be together for whatever reason. So,
yeah. When you're working with these individuals, are they typically coming to you as like one of the pair, or are they coming to you as a pair looking to mend it?
Most of the time it's one individual. It's usually one individual, and that one individual is usually trying to desperately drag the other person in, and that other person is usually very difficult to work with.
So that's another consideration, right? Do you want to have someone who, because a relationship it's two people, right? So they could do all the work, they could make all the progress, and then you have this other person over here who's stubborn, heels in the sand, they're not budging. That's not good for you, right? In terms of the outcomes. And again, this could be part of the positioning / messaging, is like, listen, if your relationship is on the brink of disaster and you and your partner are on the same page of wanting to solve it, here's the next step. As opposed to, this is not for you if you and your partner are not willing to do this together. Like, you guys have to be on the same page. We will not even pass go. We will not collect $200 unless both of you are both committed to working and doing this work, because it's a 50-50 thing. So you can be very, very explicit in your messaging with respect to the offer, whether it's booking a call, working with you, whatever, to say, this is what I require of you in order for me to work my magic with you guys. But if only one of you shows up, it's not going to happen. Don't even bother. And that's the approach that I would take in that case.
So there's two things to add into this. So one, if I was to describe to you the ideal client that has actually come through this, and I've had a few of them, but the most ideal person is actually somebody who's coming in when their relationship is rocky. And so they come in and they're like, my relationship's rocky. I really need to work on relationship stuff. I'm not sure what to do here. Yep. I essentially go through the assessment with them and come to realize that this person's actually ready to probably lead this relationship. They just needed somebody to be there as their safety net or support system. And so then I essentially move in and say, like, cool, I'm going to now be 100% your safety net, help you understand how to navigate through all of this, get them all the way through their divorce, essentially, and then help them rebuild on the other side. So I've done this with probably, I don't know, over a dozen people, but a small amount in terms of my large group. But that's the perfect ideal situation, because it doesn't actually end up getting the other person involved. But it's what we've identified is that they're ready to leave the relationship, like that they know somehow in the back of their mind, I realize that I've tried so hard and I can't make this work. And now I just need to know how to recover so that I don't recreate the wheel. I don't want to do this again with anybody else. I need to heal myself. That's like, because I have all that stuff. So I can absolutely help those people.
Well, that's good, because so it's not so much about rescuing the relationship. It's about kind of like saving yourself. Because they're not in the relationship you need to be in. Right.
They're in a crazy amount of pain there in that place because they're stuck. They're like, I don't know how to get out of this. I've been here for many years, and like, I feel scared to leave. I
have no one else to talk to about this, whatever.
Yeah. I need somebody to kind of walk me through this and be there with me through the whole process.
That's very compelling as well. Right. And that's why, like, you can see how all these little micro avatars are very different in terms of their desired pain points and thus the messaging, right?
Yeah.
So if that's kind of where you get the most jazzed up and those are kind of like your perfect clients, go there. Because I know some people pretty close to me, including my brother, who've been in that situation many, many times before. And they've been in relationships for way too long because they didn't have the skills or the support or whatever, the guidance to navigate through that and then not recreate it again. And I think
that's the big selling point, is that most people go through that, they suffer through it time after time, and they never learn what they need to learn to like actually make it not happen again, right? So that would be the big part of the program, is to say like, we can stop this in its tracks.
Yeah. Have you been in the same relationship 3 times? Yes, I have. Well, maybe there's the problem here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, like I think, listen, like the market's massive, right? Whether you're talking about save your divorce or, come back together as a couple or this, the market is huge. But what I think, what's interesting about this, to support your point on this, is that you have someone who's suffering in silence a lot of times, right? And they may or may not have as much support as if they were kind of doing this together with their spouse to kind of bring things back together. And that in and of itself is very painful. And if they have someone they can trust like you, and in the context of like a higher ticket offer, I don't know if you want to have a community component or not, but if they were in a community with other people that were also going through what they're going through, now they have that sounding board to say like, shit, I'm not alone. You guys are also going through this, right? And that becomes very powerful from a community perspective. So yeah, I think for me, that's a home run avatar right there.
Okay, so then there's a question. So then the burning question here, okay, that because I've gotten almost this far myself, this is very helpful. But the burning question is then how to identify that person, right? Because to me, that's still a very ambiguous person. Mm-hmm. It's not a doctor or a lawyer. It's not a specific person at that level. And even with the marketing strategies I've seen, it can be very challenging to just identify a person. Let's just say even a person that is actually married, let alone a person who's struggling in a marriage, right? So it starts to become very difficult to identify that person. Do you have suggestions at that level, right? Because that's the tough part.
So, I mean, the way we look at this is, we look at this in 2 ways. We look at the profitable problem, which is kind of what we just talked about. We look for something that has high persistence and high severity. So persistence is objective, severity is subjective. So you could say, well, someone looking to lose weight, that may not be severe for some people. Obviously it's not, because 2/3 of the population's, overweight. But persistence, it's there 24/7. So when you're dealing with issues up here, those are really, really great offers, right? So like what you have right now is something in the neighborhood of persistence. Like this thing is it's on the back of my mind all the time. And for this person, it's severe. Now, with that said, there are many other people in this situation who are like, I'm going to call it a day. I've given up on my standards. I'm just going to accept it for what it is. I'm going to live the rest of my life in misery. So for those people, they don't want to change, and that's fine. That's going to be the same with any market, any problem. So we've identified a problem that we know a good chunk of people will solve. And the second question is, who is that person who is willing to kind of take that step? It doesn't matter if they're a doctor, firefighter, whatever. Like in some cases, you can narrow down things in that fashion. But here, what I would suggest is you identify this person through situational or character traits. And so what you might end up having is, let's say 20 clients, and they're all very different, let's call it in their profession or what they do in life, but they all have the common trait or the common factor of they're going through this shared experience. So how you do that is really through your messaging. So for instance, like as I mentioned, like you might have an ad that says, have you been in the same relationship 3 times? Not sure how to change the pattern? Now, a doctor could relate to that. A dentist could relate to that. A firefighter could relate to that. A teacher could relate to that. And it's the messaging that pulls them in based on that experience or what they're going through. And that is how you would, that's the approach that I would recommend, because if you're running, whether it's Google or Facebook ads, that becomes a very clear message as an example that would pull those people in who are experiencing that. And however they identify is irrelevant in this case. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Again, I have a bunch of experience running both Google and Facebook Facebook ads. And in that process, though, getting a broad target, I guess what you're saying is if the message is that accurate, that anybody that then sees the ad's only going to be responding if it's something that applies directly to them. And then at that point, what we're using as qualifiers is maybe just like how much money they'd make, right? It's like if you make over a certain amount of money or something to that effect, making sure that we have a good pool of people to pull from. Then if they see the messaging and they respond to it, we know that they're in a good position, that kind of a thing, as opposed to being so targeted with the marketing, looking for an actual individual. Like, and some people get so specific, it's like how to make nurses transition to the, it's like, so you're like, okay, I'm targeting nurses, right? That's the part that, again, when I'm running ads like this, like we just get trash. I hate to say that, but social media advertising has turned into trash for us. I've spent so much money doing it, and I just am at this point like, okay, I don't do it anymore. I prefer to get real people from referrals that actually are going to be real clients.
What it comes down to, it's just a skill, right? It's a skill around messaging. It's a skill around knowing how, like the difference between Google and Facebook, for instance, that Facebook is 100% interruption. So the warmth or the willingness for that person to take the next step with you is much, much lower than someone who's searching on Google how to get out of my relationship, right? That's a very intent-based customer. So the sales cycle in that case is much shorter and there's much more intent versus Facebook, which is like, I was just scrolling through my feed and I happened to see this standing in the line at Starbucks. Right. So we have to be realistic about the platform and the expectations that come from that. With that said, obviously the messaging needs to be very clear. I would not necessarily use financial status in the qualification criteria in an ad, like overtly, like, hey, if you're making more than $100,000, this is for you. Like,
not messaging, just on the back end. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So that would be, again, like most issues are messaging issues. Like Facebook is, listen, like we spend 6 figures a month on Facebook. We've been doing so for the past 7 years. We've been profitable every single week. And our clients, do the same, not to the same ad spend necessarily, but when I started advertising for HealthPreneur 7 years ago, it was, at the time, I thought amazing because I could target Dr. Oz, I could target very specific individuals and very specific interests. The challenge with that is it was also very complicated because you had so many different ad sets and targeting options and all this stuff. So when iOS 14.5 came out, and then obviously as Facebook started to chop away all these interests, people started freaking out because they're like, I can't target the people I want to target. And it's like, good, because you don't need to be a professional media buyer. Facebook is so good at giving you exactly what you ask for. The algorithm is so advanced now compared to where it was 5, 6, 7 years ago that you will get better results with broader audiences. And then when those audiences come into your funnel and they're converting, assuming they're the right people based on your messaging, Facebook will find more of those people. And so it's actually easier when you know what you're doing to make Facebook advertising work now than it used to be, 5 years ago. Now, obviously the cost of advertising in general has gone up. So it is what it is. But that's also another reason why a higher ticket offer is very important because it gives you that opportunity to have more margin and not be perfect. So it really, as I mentioned, it comes down to clarity of message, right? Yep. Knowing exactly who you're speaking to. And I think, if you take that clarity of avatar and the messaging is very clear toward them, like don't expect 1 or 2 ads to crush it. Like I've written more than 1,500 ads for HealthPreneur over the years. And we test ads every single day. A lot of them don't work, right? You just have to be willing to learn from like what's working, what's not, what's bringing certain people in. And you're always trying to make these course corrections and 1% tweaks until you find something that really works. That's the name of the game, right? There's no, magic ad or magic pill that, is the panacea. But that's really like just what it's all about. So out of our conversation, what's the one thing you're going to take out of this and kind of put into action?
Well, going forward, this at least helps me make a bit of a mental decision to say, okay, this relationship, divorce area seems to be a very strong pain point. And it is something at least I can now, talking about testing, I can research and test and see whether or not that would be a more fruitful place for me to start building funnels from, right? Because like I said, I've built a few funnels here and they essentially peter out to nothing. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway today is just exactly what, I was asking you for, which is, where is this starting point and what do you think might work? So thank you for saying that.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thank you for being with me. Thank you for kind of opening up the business a little bit, giving us some peek behind the kimono, and hope you guys watching and listening to this got some great value out of it as well. In less than 30 minutes, I'm going to give you my entire $100 million business building blueprints. In fact, actually, it's done more than $220 million for our clients. I'm going to shift over into a very tactical training for you in just a moment, where I'm going to walk you through the acquisition, the delivery, how to work with clients online, and in literally 30 minutes, you will have so much more clarity